Howdy folks, today we're going to be servicing my motorcycle. I'm going to drop the oil, change the oil filter, change the spark plugs. I've already got to head and change the air filter, but that's pretty easy. You just grab your key, you undo this hinges down, air filter's in there. That's pretty simple. Now I've already dropped the oil, but I'm going to show you what I did. So I use a 19mm and just drop the oil there, and there's a bolt right at the back of the crankcase there, and just letting that oil slowly drain out. And on the other side here you can see that this thing right here that needs to open up as well. Got a couple of other little maintenance things to do on the bike. Tighten up nuts and bolts. It is a single thumper, so it does vibrate itself loose. Also, like I said, going to change a spark plug, so we'll get in there and do that. Perhaps once the engine has cooled down after I've changed the oil. Now, looking at the sump plug here, the washer. Now this was very loose, it wasn't on very tight at all, so the washer hasn't even been crushed. Luckily the sump plug didn't come loose. However, you can see the top of the spark plug, sump plug, we got a magnet there, and there's some crud on there, so you know the engine is wearing in and slowly chewing itself up. This is one of the reasons it's good to change the oil. Because that's the stuff that it's caught. Imagine all the other stuff floating around in here. The bike just hit 30,000 kilometers on a ride yesterday, so it's time to do these things. With the unified or uni construction engine, you don't need to adjust any tappets or anything like that because it's a hydraulic tappet system, so that's one less thing to worry about. Just a little quick note, this actually isn't the drain hole, it's the tensioner for the primary chain that goes from your crankshaft and your sprug clutch to your main clutch housing, the basket, and then thus transferring everything, all the power from here to inside your gearbox. So you don't need to undo that. Alright folks, so while the oil is draining out of the pan, I'm just going to go ahead and undo the oil filter housing here. These are 8mm, so I'm just going to finish undoing that, take out the oil filter, and show you what's inside. So I thought I'd show you this. A couple of things I've done, some precautionary steps, say it properly. Put a bit of newspaper just under here because all that oil is going to drain out, go on the exhaust, and you're just going to make a big mess. I've just got a piece of paper as a little ramp, and that ramp goes down into the oil pan, so that's that. You can see all the oil draining out here. Now I take this out very carefully because it's spring loaded. There's a little O-ring on here as well, and there's an O-ring sitting on the housing as well, so 2 O-rings there, and we've got our oil filter on the inside. So let's just pop that over here on a bit of newspaper, and I use old newspapers from everywhere. I'm just going to let that sort of sit there and drain out, and we'll pop that oil filter out in a minute. Then after we're done cleaning all this up, just make sure that newspaper doesn't fall into the oil pan. After we're done letting all this oil drain out, I'm going to clean this area here. Now some people spray some brake clean or degreaser in here, so we'll pop this out in a minute and I'll show you the new oil filter. Now if we try to look right down in here, it's hard to see, but around the outside of this barrel there's an O-ring sitting in there, and it's stuck in there. Not stuck in as in stubborn, but it was left in there. It's pretty hard to see. There we go. It's right around the outside of that circle. We need to pull that out because our kit, our little oil filter here, it comes with a new oil filter and it also comes with 2 O-rings. Okay, one O-ring is the one that goes in this hole where that other one is. Now think about it, that O-ring down in there is subjected to a lot of heat, a lot of oil, and both those things over time will degrade things. So we're going to change that. Now the kit, the oil filter that you buy, it comes with 2 brand new O-rings. The other O-ring is going to go on the top of the filter housing, not the gasket here down the bottom, but this one up here. So we need to remove both of those. So what I'm doing right now is carefully removing that O-ring out of here, trying not to get anything else inside there. I'll probably give it a wipe down, but that's the old O-ring. It's probably fine, but you know what? You buy an oil filter, it comes with the new O-rings. Replace them. So we'll pop these in a moment. Now what I like to do is just give them a coating of new oil. Probably not necessary in an engine like this where it goes right inside here and it's already covered in oil. It doesn't hurt to do it. Okay, ladies and gents, so the new oil filter is sort of half in. Basically just put the new O-rings in and just gonna slowly tighten this up. Now what I tend to do is I just turn each one of these bolts a full turn each, and I keep going around in a circle until this sits flush, and then we'll torque it up correctly. The reason I do that is I don't want to just have one side pushing. Remember this is spring loaded, so it could crack the alloy. It could. I've seen it happen before on a very similar piece of alloy, just like this, on a ZX6R. It was the I believe the output of the cooling system, the coolant hose, which was right at the back of the engine underneath the carburetors. A pain to replace. And anyway, this is obviously much easier to replace. However, we don't want to replace anything, we just want to service the bike. So I suggest slowly, take your time. What's the hurry? And just tighten up one bolt at a time, one turn at a time, and you'll eventually get there. Okay, so now that we've got the oil filter in, I've gone and put the sump plug bolt back in, gave a bit of a clean up around the area there, put the new washer on, and screwed that back in. Now make sure you torque this up. A very common thing that happens on a lot of motorcycles, especially with an alloy crankcase and alloy sump, is that your bolt is steel and it can strip out the threads. So make sure you torque this up exactly as per the manufacturer's specifications, because then you'll run into issues. Now this bike, I do know because I have the receipt from the previous owner, did have the issue where it did in fact strip out. So they had to put a helicoil in to fix that up. So it is a very common issue. So just refilling the engine up now. We're using Penrite motorcycle 4-stroke oil, 15 weight 50. This is fully synthetic oil. It's a little bit expensive. Some would say too expensive for a bike like this. But anyway, it's nice using good oil if you can afford it. And it meets the manufacturer's specifications. So I'm just slowly filling up the oil now. I kind of noticed, even though I've only just replaced the air filter maybe a couple of 100 k's ago, one of the reasons for that was because the original air filter that was in here was completely clogged up with oil. And the reason for that was when I bought the bike, it was overfilled, which meant oil, which this is the crankcase breather that goes through here, up here, and then out of this little hole here. And that's just to vent out any crankcase pressures that will build up, especially in a big single. What happened was, though, when you overfill these engines, oil spurts out of here, comes out of here, coats the paper air filter, which is bad for a paper air filter, and also pulls up on the bottom here. And what had actually happened was it covered my exhaust in oil. The other thing is, I noticed this airbox, if I zoom out, is loose. And when I open it up to have a look why, we can see there's a bolt missing there that bolts to the chassis. And there's also, this one might be hard to see, but there's also a bolt missing there. And we're finally nearly there. Just got sighting of some clean oil appearing in the window. So I think by the time this drains out, we should be at the right level. Then we'll start the bike up and let it run for a minute or two, let the oil circulate through the engine. We'll let it stop and let it settle. And what we're looking for is the oil to be at the height of the line at the top. So these lines here. That's the most you should fill the oil. Sadly, when I got the bike, it was overfilled. It was so overfilled that having it level like this on the center stand, the oil was completely covering the glass and you couldn't actually see anything. So I've started the bike up and you can see there was some oil in there before and now there isn't. It's slowly creeping back in, but I'm just going to give it a minute and let it settle, and then we're going to top it up again.